Do I sense nostalgic, says Evgenia Chirikova. No very. Lot of human beings there say my tongue. They are amiable, vigorous and interestingly courteous. I'm residing in the Russia of my ambition. She's speaking on Estonia, her household for the recent couple and a half year, a shelter of the harassment she florid as an ecological campaign participant and an candid reviewer of Rusky CEO Vladimir Putin. Her career as an militant began 11 years back, while Chirikova and her household were walk via the Kaimki Wood, a ex-imperial huntland imbued in old oak trees, savage hog and uncommon butterflies. I was pregnant woman, looking striker to a outing in my eldest child and my man while I saw things strange, she says. Down there were red crosses colored on few oaks and birches. I wondered why these excellently wholesome trees necessary to be minced downward. Kaimki was a secured wood, the verdant lungs of Moscow. Chirikova and her man, Mikhail, had intentionally excited to the region of the traffic-clogged town center, in procedure to be shut to it. On her back of the outing, Chirikova got on the telephone and warned the authorities to which she had seen. She had estimated how a swindler business was hard to bending the rules, so she was surprised to find formally authorized plans for a £5 billion railway how would piece via the secured wood, although down there were option, less than ecologically injuring means of communication. Officials at the Ministry of Nature Asset and the Country Board for Environment Protect confident her how the judgment had been adopted by the CEO oneself, and after, as main secretary, Vladimir Putin signed a edict change the wood's secured statute to enable for transportation and infrastructure facilities. Chirikova suspected the actual cause for enabling the way to go via the wood was to outdoor upearth close the equity to developers. She leftward her mechanical engineering job to organize social opposition. The at first demonstrate of her team, Rescue Kaimki Wood, driven 5,000 human beings onto the gateway, one of the greatest ecological protests in Rusky story, and collected more than rather than 50,000 signing. Her crusading confident the Europe Banking of Renovation and Growth and the Europe Invest Banking, main finance backers of the railway, to remove financing. But successful came at a price. Chirikova was detained few times and some activists and journalists were set on by unidentified assailants. While Kaimki paper text editor Mikhail Beketov grown suspicions how regional officials were profiting of the highway draft, his dog was annihilated, his car was set on flame and eventually he was attacked so savagely how he incurred marrow harm and never regained the force of speaking. Chirikova remembers departure to trip him in intense thoroughness. He had loose few fingers, had a leg amputated and portion of his cranium was lacking following a beaten in an Ferris pub. My legs were trembling so ill how I fair sat on the clinic story, she says. To the at first period, I was very frightened. Nobody who could do such a item to else man has no ethical principles and I understood how a gangster mode had withdrawn force in my nation. Chirikova herself was aim in else way, via her poor place, her family. Same authorities distribution put on me proverb I smacked my daughters and didn't nourish them correctly, she says. A guy of the safety services came to our flat unit and requested my neighbors to mark a paper proverb I was a bad mom. Her senior child was so frustrated by the view of men in unchecked cars observer the household how she was too frightened to go to high school. While strangers knocked together on the doorway, the girls would conceal by their beds. Ultimately the household had to go to a new neighborhood nearer to the center of Moscow but the oppression extended, now in the shape of menacing telephone call. Chirikova says it took her daughter's 3 years of treatment to restore. Her own concern extended to increase, yet, particularly while the Kid Protect facility hinted how it might get her offended daughters off of her. I lay awake at overnight wonder which I would do if I were shipped to jail and my daughters to an orphanhood, she says. In the end how is why I solved to keep the nation. More than importantly, she says, ours motion showed some Russians how it is probable to struggle versus inequity, subject corrupt practices and to conduct the authorities' reports. of Estonia. She continues to promote ecological activists through Russia via a new website, that rests stories on the campaigning to rescue a Moscow garden, on toxic smog or the risk to Pond Baikal of new hydropower force stations. I sense love an emigrant in Estonia, not an expulsion, Chirikova says, or he's shut quite how I can journey to Russia whenever I requirement for. Prudent the numbers of human beings who include leftward the nation is complex by the reality how largest hold their Ruski passports though if they profit passports or accommodation permits in some countries. The country statistic facility calculated 350,000 emigration in 2015 to 10 times more than rather than in 2010. On the top story of a trading shopping center in Berlin I encounter Els of the new emigres, 33-year-old Asia Parfenova. She utilized to be a reporter in Moscow and took portion in the Poll Observer's motion in 2012 and 2013, accountability on voters creature ferret about voting stations, seemingly vote repeated times, and on askance-filled voting boxes. I'm perhaps the just one of my poll watcher friends who has never been in jail, she says, increase and brow. Asia begun a business that switched her to get a work visa in Germany. She rest and flee chamber, a crew play in that players are blocked up and include to resolve facility puzzles, as a watch is tick, to win their liberty. I love rules that are precise and we don't include such in Russia, she says. Same by the government is ever enterprising the concept of sustainability, but Russia is in fact the low steady location now since no can forecast which will occur next day, how laws will be interpreted, and the is really injuring for industry. Parfenova adds how lot success entrepreneurs in Russia are now hard to get a fulcrum in overseas markets. They are hard to get ready, as we tell, a replacement aeroport, a secure location to earth in instance down there is no opportunity of disembarkation in Russia any more than. Else new jargon speech has crept in the Ruski tongue, says Artemy Troitsky, Russia's guideline piece of music reviewer, Poravalism, or period to get out of hereism. A top-profile paravolist oneself, Troitsky now lives in Estonia, loved Chirikova. In 2011, he and few so-known creative intelligentsia and opposition figures took portion in demonstrations versus poll scam. All wore symbolical whites ribbons, and a rattled Vladimir Putin ridiculed them for looking love condoms. In top alcohol, Troitsky took to the phase dressed in a whites, rubber-looking shell. After how year he floored an attack of libel suits, but it took more than rather than how to eradicate him. For Troitsky the crucial time came following the accession of Crimean Peninsula in 2014 and the next war in East Ukraine, while he was alarmed by which he telephone call a unpleasant fest of nationism, militarist and orthodox in Russia. Loved Chirikova, he says anxiety for his family was the determination element in his judgment to keep. It very done me patient while I heard of them several things how they selected up at high school or at the nursery school. My slight child Lydia begun to speak me on Nazi who wish to intrude our nation and how we include to protect ourselves, how Putin is a large man and so at. Troitsky, yet, does get nostalgic and he remnant submerged in Ruski civilization. Though he yet visits Russia, he hopes one day to back for nice. He isn't certainly junior generations will sense the identical affection, although he says just a block of his friends' family in their 20s include opted to remain in Russia, the otherwise are student, work and house new lives overseas. London is else famous purpose for Ruski emigres, although one of the top known now spends the most of his lifetime on the internet, hard to changing his nation of external. Mikhail Khodorkovsky ran the Yukos oil business up he was concluded in 2003 on extortion wide seen as politically reasoned. Following 10-year overstick he wrote to Putin request to be released so he could say goodbye to his moribund mom. I was undertaken to the stairs of the aircraft as a inmate in a escort. And while human beings in the Kremlin round began discussions as to if or not I could back I told, okay, I would be lucky to go behind to Russia. Fair speak me, are down there any strings assigned, he says. He leans behind in his armchair in a rise smiling. Virtually during a monthly it was announced how a new penal instance would be driven versus me, so the just way I could back was direct in a jail cage. Love Chirikova, Khodorkovsky sees the web as his battleground. They could believe human beings love me are out of concern in date-to-date Ruski fact, says the tycoon of the timber-paneled office space of his outdoor Russia basis. Or I requirement to persuade them differently, so affirmative, you could say I dwell in a virtual planet. How's the selection how I include done? Requested which she loves on Russia, Nadia Tolokhonikova, replies, he's love request, which do you loving on yours mom? It is fair my mom and I cannot think myself out of he. She shooting to popularity elderly 22 while she and 2 other of the Kitty Revolt punk rock team were detained for sing, Maiden Mary, Mom of Deity, Get Rid of Putin, in a Moscow council. Tolokhonikova consumable almost 2 year in a jail camping, garment policeman's uniforms for 16 several hours a date. So why is she yet vehemently devoted to stay in Russia? Tongue at first of all, since now I sense love and full hard to explanation my thoughts in various tongue. You cannot use detailed information and semitones and tune of overseas languages as you can in yours their own. And how's gem? And civilization and iconography and religious, and film and publication, and Ruski human beings who are savage, hazardous, artistic, and very courageous. I very do loving to be within of the brave society of human beings who are venturing their lives hard to changing their nation. It gives feeling to my lifetime. Following her produce of jail, she set up Mediazona, an freelance news story website how focuses on the legislative framework, and Zone Prava, area of judiciary, that campaigns for superior jail facility. While she was overstick in Mordovia, in northern Russia, she was shocked how severely ill inmates were rejected medicine. Or law now we include a pair of many decades of cases how we won in the Europe trial of humane rights and it helps not fair individuals but with hope it pushes the entire jail framework to be frightened of NGOs and humane rights workers since no requested to be vulnerable. Tolokhonikova says largest of Mediazona's readers are by 35, they include inquisitive minds and they're more eager for changing. She believes how a thirsty for affair, for significant activity and honor in Russia, not to be embarrassed in nationism, might fair halt several outgoing, and give other behind. The youthful human beings who protested versus corrupt practices in lot cities over the year as well offer her expect. They're actual patriots. They are not the Putin kind of patriots who choose to dwell overseas but fair get cash of the oil and gas production. Such human beings who are deprecating law now versus Vladimir Putin, they wish to do lifetime superior in their own nation. They wish to evolve economics, artwork, print. They wish to include superior TV channels, not just promotion car as it is law currently.